Right. Let's actually do a proper introduction. Okay. Okay, so good morning, good evening, good afternoon, good night, and whatever the hell else time zones are available. I don't know. Maybe you're in a place where time and space does not exist, but at the moment, it is 4 p.m. in the UK, where I am, and this is the time that I have set to start the game. This is a very odd game, because I can't introduce the other players on audio, because the players for this game are going to be the gallery. Yes, it is the chat. It is the entire chat listening live from this server. I'm a bit terrified. It's a very experimental game. Let's get started. Actually, no, before we get started, how this game is going to work is, you know those very old computer games where you had to type in an action and then do it? So I will occasionally give a split path option. Like a choose your own adventure story, like the Goosebumps books. And you always choose the one where you die. Yeah. So I will type in a set of options, and chat will vote by hitting an emoji for the option that they like. Please vote for just one, otherwise things will get really confusing really quickly. Doesn't matter what emoji you use, as long as, like, you know, I can figure out how many people have voted. Yeah, Johnathan is gonna die. That is something that's gonna happen. And you will understand that from the very start. Speaking of which, here is the start. Are we all sitting comfortably? Then I'll begin. Everything is good for you in limited doses. For example, while in large amounts it is entirely fatal, a small measure of digitalis can be used to aid poor eyesight, or even a heart condition. Light allows us to perceive the world around us, but an excess of it can destroy our sight altogether. Smell can be very pleasant so long as it is not overwhelming. Sound can be elating if it isn't deafening, but silence can be equally so, in both directions. Even experiencing pain occasionally can warn one of not going too far, and reminds one of what a pleasure it is when pain is absent. So long as there is not too much of whatever the subject at hand is, pleasure or healing can be found, even in the most unlikely forms. Johnathan is a half-toon, half-real kind, level 3, human, pronouns he, him. He works in an office, which he hates, doing a job, which he hates. It requires paperwork, obedience, and a lack of deviation from the norm, which he hates but is exceedingly practiced at. His parents split up when he was very young, and his father died 2 months ago. Johnathan had been the only person to attend his father's funeral. Small or great, every day's tragedy is very much like every other day's tragedy for Johnathan, and a little regularity is good for you, but too much can cause problems, or even cause something very odd to happen. You see, when someone's routine becomes so routine that they themselves do not feel as though they are controlling it, the part of them that controls anything at all about themselves might very well just decide to pick itself up and walk away. Today, Johnathan wakes up with a crick in his neck and a book on his face, but it is not the same as the many previous mornings when this same thing has happened. That is because today, Johnathan is not, as one might say, feeling quite himself. The person or persons controlling Johnathan are you. All of you. Yes, you in the gallery. The people in the Toonkind server who are listening right now. Welcome to the game. Johnathan has woken up with a crick in his neck and a book on his face. The alarm clock, which did not go off in time, is screaming at him from the bedroom which he did not sleep in. It jitters off the bedside table and promptly smashes with a complicated series of twangs. It is 5 minutes past 9. From the following options, what would you like Johnathan to do? I will now put these options in the chat. It will take me a second because I am new to this. I will get better at it as we go along. There are 3 options. Look at the apartment, look at the book, wish you hadn't slept on the sofa. Please place an emoji next to the version of this choice that you would prefer. Not the top one, because that is all three, and I cannot do all three, because that would spoil the multiple option thing. It's alright. This is the tutorial. This is the tutorial, and I promise you will be allowed to take another shot at choosing from these three options again. After 5 seconds, I will choose which one is the most popular. You have chosen book. Let me just scroll to the part where we get to look at the book, because I have written every single option that you can choose in this entire game. I'm an idiot. Johnathan looks at the book on his face. The book Johnathan was reading is called Verisimilitude in 5 Easy Steps. The chapters are 1. I think, therefore I am, probably. 2. To be is to be perceived. 3. To be or not to be. Is this a choice? 4. Indra's web. 5. The meaning of life. Johnathan is on chapter 3 and finds the whole thing rather tedious, but as he has bothered to rent it out from the local library, he is determined to make it to the end. Johnathan will never make it to the end. Incident. Suddenly, the phone begins to ring in an abrasive and demanding tone. Should you pick up the phone or do not? Or not. My grammar is going to be appalling in this. Even though I'm trying to be as British as possible. I'm counting down in my head for 5 seconds. The overwhelming consensus is to pick up the phone. Congratulations. Johnathan picks up the phone and places it against his left ear, which is immediately blown off by the equally abrasive and demanding tones of his boss. The tinnitus fades out as he reclaims his ear from the floor, having missed most of the beginning of the message, but the ending of it is too clear. Here in 5 minutes or you're fired! F-I-E-R, and you know the rest! The phone call ends with a strongly implied slam on the other side. Do you leave the apartment or do you not? This one is strongly contested. How exciting. Daedalus, you may get your wish to come true. My god, it's very close. Okay, well, you have decided to leave by a hair. By a hair. How exciting. Okay, where are we going? Okay. Johnathan decides that the narrative is feeling cramped inside his 1-bedroom apartment and decides to go outside. Johnathan, who is conveniently already in his office clothes due to falling asleep on the sofa, goes outside. The block of apartments sits on a crossroads, which branches off in 2 directions. West and east. Would you like to travel west or east? Overwhelmingly, the eastern is decided upon. I'm not sure why, but it's lovely. Okay, Johnathan goes east, heading into the very heart of Toontown. This is not the direction to head into work, and while part of his heart worries about that, today Johnathan's heart is on forced leave, and someone else is telling him to head this way. So, as ever, Johnathan dutifully does what he is told. Johnathan comes to a stop. There is a very good coffee bar just across the road ahead. Perhaps if he listens to the demands of the mysterious voices, there will be bagels. Or even 2 bagels. Tragically, however, Johnathan's progress is impeded by a blockade. There are official-looking people keeping pedestrians back, some with clipboards, most with very good coffees. There are strips of plastic tied to traffic cones forming a small and ineffectual barrier. What would Johnathan like to do? Will he stop at the barrier, or will he duck under the barrier? I think I know which way this one is going to go ahead of time. I'm glad you're all so much what I relied upon you being. Straight down a sinkhole. I didn't actually think of that. Damn, maybe next time. Johnathan ducks under the barrier. He waits until exactly the right moment and deftly swings his meagre ribcage down and under the barrier in a smooth looping motion that betrays his Toonish heritage despite being over 6 feet high. Well, not high, tall. That's bad grammar, Sarah. You should have written this more carefully. Checking that nobody has noticed, and lured to the siren song promise of bagels, and perhaps even coffee, or 2 bagels, Johnathan steps forward. There is a sharp, hard sound, like that of a fist colliding with someone's face, followed by footsteps and a weak cry for help as an old man in rags suddenly appears, tumbling out of an alleyway ahead. He scrabbles backwards along the ground, making a pleading motion, heedless of Johnathan. It appears the old man is trying to reason with a pair of grim-looking characters who have also exited the alleyway ahead. The crowd is surprised and rings with gasps, but nobody acts to help the man. What do you want, Johnathan, to do? Will you help or will you not? Oh, I'm so happy about this. You're all wonderful people. I think we can safely say that that's a win on the heroics. Dashing forward to do daring do, or at least get into a bad situation quickly, Johnathan screeches to a halt in front of the beleaguered old man to protect him from the 2 assassins. The bandits stop for a moment, bewildered by this heroic appearance of the stranger, before the shorter of the pair suddenly curses in Grolix and throws his ragged hat on the floor in a rage. Cut! 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 Who the peck let this genius on my set? Johnathan beholds the grizzled orange face of a creature with no eyes and even less of a temper, the previously beleaguered old man behind him laughing at the ruined take, while above the alcove of the alley a spray of camera crew groan from a 2-story rig. It appears that Johnathan has just interrupted the filming of one of the engineer's latest and greatest films, and the resultant endless tirade of angry Scots and more Grolix being thrown up at him from the pointed maw of the director is akin to being fired on at close range by a Gatling gun. What should Johnathan do? Should he A. stand there and take it, B. apologise, or C. try to kick the engineer into orbit? A, B, or C. Now this is going to be interesting. I'm going to have to do some very hasty maths in my head. Still a few seconds left to vote. No, I'm afraid the predictable has happened. You have voted for C. Up, and away. Johnathan is surprised to feel his left leg winding up behind him before delivering a prize-winning strike underneath the engineer's chin. The impact breaks one of his toes, but he is also surprised at how good it feels to watch the director sail away in a series of backward-spinning smear frames. He even revels in the gasps of awe and shock from the onlookers derived from this startling response, so very out of character for Johnathan. Momentarily lost in the bliss of this wild act, Johnathan fails to even see the inevitable incoming rebuttal, as he is punched so hard that his feet leave the floor at the same instant as his senses leave his head. Flying backwards in a smooth, graceful parabola far up and then straight down into a predictably open manhole, Johnathan is unconscious before impact and, owing to his severe lack of hit points and the excess of fall damage, dies without even knowing what hit him, although he does at least know who. Congratulations. The game is over. However, Johnathan has woken up with a crick in his neck and a book on his face. The alarm clock, which did not go off on time, is screaming at him from the bedroom, which he did not sleep in. It jitters off the bedside table and promptly smashes with a complicated series of twangs. It is 9 past. What would you like Johnathan to do? Would you like to look at the apartment, look at the book, or wish you hadn't slept on the sofa? Book, book, sofa. I appreciate the choices of emoji being made right now. It really adds to the flavour. Alas, no bagel. But I can tell you that you have succeeded straight away at finding the bonus title card, which is the Ann Knuckles option. You managed to find the extended title card screen straight away. Well done, everybody. Give yourself a round of applause. Very impressed, very impressed. I also kind of called it. I'm very happy that you did that. Thank you very much. This game could be incredibly short. I'm not sure how short it's going to be. I will occasionally have to stop to take drinks of water because I have to do all the voice acting. Anyway, you have chosen Look at the Apartment. Johnathan perceives his apartment. It is neither lavish nor derelict, but somewhere between the two. The flat is mostly very plainly furbished and the flaking walls are painted in a preset dull blue-grey. No posters are allowed. But there are some bright-coloured flags and beads hung on the wall that Johnathan had salvaged from one of Toontown's many parades. Most of the books he has collected are from the library. On one of the shelves, a set of framed photographs collects dust kept out of habit rather than fondness. There are 2 notable pictures, one of Johnathan's family and one of him at school. Which one would you like to look at? School or family? Ah, overwhelming. I don't even need to wait. Goodness me. Family. It is an awkward picture of 3 people who do not look at all like one another and are all trying to smile too widely. It is one of the last occasions that Johnathan can remember smiling at all. Jonathan's mother was a Toon, a Technicolor rubber hose, and his father a human real kind. The 2 were divorced, fairly young in Jonathan's life, and his father took it in. Sometimes Johnathan considers finding out where his mother wound up, but he hasn't felt much like getting around to it. When he asked his father about this separation, Jonathan's father simply said that when his mother left, the laughter had left his life. This was his father's explanation for why laughter was not allowed in the house. The phone begins to ring in an abrasive and demanding tone. Do you pick up the phone or not pick up the phone? Sorry, I keep catching little bits of the observations happening in chat. I'm mostly trying to ignore them because otherwise I will just sit here going crazy. Do not pick up the phone. Johnathan decides that the narrative is feeling cramped inside his 1-bedroom apartment and decides to go outside before somebody else tells him to do otherwise. He also has an uncanny feeling that it is just his boss calling to say that he is about to be fired, and so is disinclined to confirm it. Do you leave the apartment or do you not leave the apartment? I actually accidentally said that he left in the preceding sentence because I didn't write this well enough. Okay, you're leaving anyway, so it all works very well. And we are back outside. There are 2 cardinal directions to pick from. Would you like to go west or east? West. That's not an option. I mean, y'all remember what was in the east. Okay, I mean, I'm letting you. Okay. Yeah, I mean, fair enough. I did consider letting there be an option where we can go back to one of the branches if we keep repeating the beginning parts too much, but there's still a few things in the apartment that you haven't done yet, so if you want to do a completionist run, I'll keep going back to the start. Maybe next time I'll ask if you want to restart or just go back to a branch. We'll see. Okay, Johnathan heads east. You all know what I said to describe this direction. So, what will Johnathan do? Will he stop in front of the barrier or will he duck under the barrier? more division this time. 3, 2, 1. Johnathan stops at the barrier. Johnathan waits at the barrier. He can't see what is supposed to be happening because there is such a crowd. He can hear some things ahead, but he is far too polite. And after about 5 minutes, a sudden noise from the direction of his apartment, followed by the impending wail of a fire truck, causes him to automatically turn around. Do you stay, or do you return to your apartment? Johnathan decides to remain for some reason at the barrier. The scene ahead appears to be the recording of a movie. There is a small orange man who is waving his arms dramatically. There is an awful lot of shouting also coming from the small orange creature. Johnathan sees far too late that it is impossible to get across to his beloved coffee shop and the bagels therein, the tragedy of which strikes him so acutely that he reels and his head collides with the pavement. Johnathan has just woken up with a crick in his neck and a book on his face. The alarm clock, which did not go off on time, is screaming at him from the bedroom which he did not sleep in. It jitters off the bedside table and promptly smashes with a complicated series of twangs. It is 5 minutes past 9. Would you like to go through all of the things that we decided to go through from the start, or would you like to take a branching option outside the apartment? So I'm going to say we can either restart from the beginning or skip. Okay, let me just find that part of the document again. I will have to scroll down. What did I say? We were going to skip to going in. Yeah, okay. Going west or east? No, we're all going east, huh? Yeah, you just want us to go east. We're going east. I don't even need to ask. Okay. So I mean we're running out of options. I didn't write an infinite number. However, we've got to the barrier. Do we stop at the barrier or duck under the barrier? Okay, we duck under the barrier. A thing happens. Do you help or do you not help? Johnathan waits at the barrier. Johnathan cannot see very clearly around the corner, but after about 5 minutes, a sudden noise from the direction of his apartment spurs him to turn around. Will he return or will he stay? Johnathan awkwardly remains exactly where he is. At some point, a character walks around a corner and turns around and sees Johnathan. They are very upset, and the director is also very upset. The director begins to shout at Johnathan. What will Johnathan do? Will you A, stand there and take it, B, apologise, or C, kick the engineer into orbit again? So this is stand there and take it, apologise, or yeet. Do note that if you choose the same option, the same thing will happen. I did not expect you to do the same thing twice. Maybe should have. Oh, you are choosing a different one. Oh, the crying face. Oh my god. You have chosen apologise. Johnathan attempts to apologise. The little orange maniac is yelling so loudly that he cannot hear Johnathan's apology. Would you like to stand there and take it, or would you like to kick the engineer? A or C? God. Johnathan decides to do what he has always done and stand there and take it. The little orange maniac yells at Johnathan for 5 solid minutes, allowing the film crew to have a nice long coffee break, and also some bagels. Filming continues after Johnathan has been escorted off the set and has lost most of his hearing, whereupon he attempts to cross the road and, being newly deaf, fails to hear the rapidly approaching fire truck, which promptly proceeds to run him over. He dies instantly. We have woken up in an apartment with a book on our face. It is 5 minutes past 9. What would you like Johnathan to do? Or would you like to skip to where he's standing awkwardly and here's a fire truck behind him, I guess? So let's go restart. Or fire truck. Fire truck. Oh my god, where was the option for fire truck? Hang on. I have to find it. Oh my god, I did write this. Where is it? Give me a second. I actually need some water. Here we go. Okay. Johnathan turns around and runs back towards his abode. What he comes back to is not what Johnathan had expected. Returning to his apartment block to see his living quarters semi-collapsed with water pouring from the windows, compounded with the sure knowledge that he will have been fired for not turning up at work this point, causes Johnathan to faint on the spot. This would have been merely inconvenient if he had not fallen straight onto something that seems to be bladed. I didn't finish writing that. I didn't come up with a better way for him to die. I think he just, managed to fall on a fireman's axe. Sarah, what the fuck? You were supposed to triple check this morning. I did. I swear I did. Anyway, he dies, having seen the destruction of his apartment. But at least you've seen that the apartment doesn't do so well. It is 5 minutes past 9. What would you like Johnathan to do? Would you like to look at the apartment, look at your book, or wish you hadn't slept on the sofa? Did I mention that today is the day that Johnathan dies? This is a fact that is, unfortunately, unavoidable. So don't feel too bad about it. Johnathan really does wish that he hadn't slept on the sofa, and makes an interesting number of clicks as he stands up to his considerable 6'5" frame and stretches. Being a half-toon means that you are not exempt from the trials of mistreating your spine, although in Jonathan's case it does allow you to stretch a little further than is rationally possible when realigning it. As you stretch, you accidentally knock one of your photographs off the mantelpiece. Which photograph is it? The school photograph or your family photograph? The school photograph smashes. Johnathan attempts to pick it up and cuts one of his fingers. Johnathan studied various topics at school, but like many others could not decide what he wanted to be in time for the schedule that the education system had made up for him, and so listlessly drifted into this miserable fate, despite being one of the most intelligent people in the world. Johnathan did not know that he was one of the most intelligent people in the world, of course, but that was because the system he was put in, though it was made to recognise and reward the acceptable, it did not recognise or reward genius. Johnathan is a genius, but he has been told repeatedly that he is not, and when one is told something enough times, one inevitably starts to believe that it is true. The phone begins to ring. Do you pick it up, or do you ignore it? Sorry for tripping over my lines. I am parched. I've been talking for a half hour solid. Hope y'all are enjoying this. Rightfully, you ignore the phone. Johnathan also ignores the phone. Would Johnathan like to stay in the apartment or leave? Interesting. Johnathan does not leave the apartment. After approximately 5 minutes pass, he has been fired, although he is not there to witness the paperwork. After another 2 minutes, there is a strange sound from his ceiling, allowing him just enough time to look up before being smashed by the cascade of plaster, water, and a bath that his neighbour had forgotten she was running and left the building. Johnathan dies instantly, but there is some conversation at the forensics office as to whether he died from the impact or drowning. We restart. What would you like Johnathan to do? Oh wait, we've done all of the options. You leave the apartment. Would you like to go west or east? Listen, I'm just saving us all time. Yeehaw! Johnathan turns west. This is the same direction that takes him to work, and so his feet automatically find their way to the usual gloomy office tower. An anonymous construction of concrete, glass, and big cheerful signs that do not inspire him or anybody else. Johnathan works for a leading company in the field of artifice technology. At present, it has been hired by Giznep to explore various possibilities for a new chain of restaurants, designed for both entertainment and profit, mostly profit, but also with the aim to build better relationships with the Toonkind populace, which they desperately need to do. Johnathan is in charge of the technical aspects and does work far better than he should be paid for. Or rather, that he's doing better work than they're paying him for. That sentence ran away with me.
About time you got here,
snorts Jonathan's boss, a horse-headed toon with the same opinions that most bosses have and few other people do.
Another 5 seconds and you'd have been out of here. As it is, your quota for today just got bigger. Isn't that a shame?
She gives him a malicious smile and dumps the double dose of papers onto his insubstantial desk. That's surprisingly hard to say. What should Johnathan do? Will he sit down and get to work? Or will he sit down and get to work? You sit down and get to work. Some instincts are so ingrained that they are impossible to overrule, and so Johnathan sits down, picks up his pen, and obediently starts to attack the impossible task. The day passes. Some of the concepts and designs that Johnathan has contributed to the project are genuinely quite innovative, although some are a little too out there for a company of this nature, and he knows it. Of course, the company will take the credit for all the good ideas, and Johnathan knows that too. It is lunchtime. Johnathan, due to his haste in leaving the apartment because we'd done all that before, did not bring his lunch because he woke up late, and then he got yelled at, and then he came to work. What should he do? Should he go hungry? Or should he starve? No, wait. Should he steal someone else's lunch? Ah, interesting. I shall wait. You'll better not be voting, like, multiple times. No, yeah, you are all voting once. You're all very well behaved. I was just checking. Opening the office fridge, Johnathan finds that there is only one brown paper lunch bag inside, which he takes. It is a strange sandwich, but his half-tuned constitution allows him to ingest it without too much difficulty. The hay is actually quite pleasant, but more than this, the giddying act of crime gives the ordinarily subservient man a small rush of pleasure, along with a tiny dose of guilt. In 10 minutes' time, the owner of the sandwich comes to claim it. She opens the fridge, then closes it, and turns around to face the office floor with an icy slowness.
Whom has stolen my luncheon?
What does Johnathan do? Does he A. tell her the truth and correct her grammar, B. jump out of the window, or 3. throw her out of the window? A, B, or C? Yes, I said C. You didn't hear me say 3. That's just a mass hallucination. has yet again done what my heart said they would. You have decided to yeet the horse. And for the only time in this entire game, I am actually going to use Johnathan's randomly produced character sheet, which is still so perfect, I love it. I'm going to roll a d20 minus 2 to see if we manage to beat... Is the dice passer even in this channel? It may not be. No, it's not. Let's go into dice rolling. Okay. We're rolling, baby, for the only time in the game. Come on, dice passer. Oh, it's R. Oh, I've never used this before. Chloe, could you... Actually, Chloe, thanks for volunteering. Like, do you want to do that? Or shall I roll a real dice? I do have a real dice, actually. Shall I do a real dice? Or Chloe? It's up to you. If I have a real dice, it'll work. Okay, I've got the dice. Here we go. Real dice for a real boy. Oh god, that's a natural 1. I'm not making it up. I wish I had a camera on it, but that's a fucking natural 1. Okay, you have failed your strength roll. Or Johnathan has failed his strength roll. Horses are surprisingly heavy. The attempt, while unsuccessful, is nevertheless written down on the pink slip that he is handed, and he exits the office in a haze. The sheer disappointment of failing to exact his spontaneously dreams before being fired is at least quelled by the impact of the car he stumbles out in front of due to a narratively convenient banana skin lying on the pavement outside. We will now return to having turned west and having gone to work, and now we are choosing whether or not to steal a sandwich, because that's basically the new road that we have to choose. So, are you going to go hungry, or are you going to steal? Welcome to the worst day of this man's life. You don't know. You don't even know, man. We're not even there yet. Steal. Steal, steal, steal. I want to steal. Okay. Johnathan steals a sandwich. Johnathan eats the sandwich. Johnathan's boss does not know who's stolen the sandwich and therefore asks, "Whom has stolen my luncheon?" Does Johnathan tell her the truth and correct her grammar, jump out of the window, or throw her out of the window? Once again, I shall put the options A, B, and C. This is closer. I shall just sit for a moment. Oh, B's run away with it, though. Defenestrate himself. All right. Jump. It's further down than it looks, but it becomes far less far down, far more quickly than Johnathan was anticipating. The balletic leap from the window, while hilarious and freeing, is unfortunately fatal for a half-toon who has not even reached level 5 when the Acme effect might have saved him if he'd had the genetic leaning for it to begin with. The last thought in Jonathan's mind is the shocking lack of regret, which stands in stark contrast to the overwhelming excess of it prior to this day's bizarre acts. Would you like to steal the sandwich, or would you like to go hungry? I'm not even going to roll the full damage. This man has like 13 hit points. Oh, excellent points for the paprika gif. Love that movie. I'm just gonna eat some sugar because my brain is starting to flag. Actually, goddamn, I've been doing this for 40 minutes. How is everybody? I mean, I can see we're gonna steal the sandwich, so I can take a little time to ask. Hooray! I'm glad this is working. I was not at all sure it was gonna work. Hope you enjoy preserved ginger ASMR. Cat participation is actively encouraged. The cat votes, it does count. Okay. Right, do I keep going or do I give myself a break for 2 minutes? Fuck, let's keep going. We've stolen the sandwich, let's see what happens. Okay, Johnathan has stolen the sandwich. What does Johnathan do after the boss asks whom has stolen my luncheon? Is it truth, dare, or yeet? Oh, crystallized ginger is delicious. Mwah. If you can find some, just have it. There's no answer other than eat it and find out. Tell her the truth and correct her grammar. Oh. Johnathan states the facts, including that it should be who has stolen or by whom has my sandwich been stolen. And these facts are written down on the pink slip that he is handed, and he exits the office in a haze. Staring at the pink slip, the sheer shock of losing his job at least helps to numb the shock and pain of the exposed length of high-voltage wire that he does not see and duly stumbles into. See, that's better than a random bladed object on the floor. I think that was probably like a broken glass bottle when he fell on it that other time. Yeah, that's gruesome enough. Okay. We return to steal or starve. Y'all love stealing so much. Oh, hello! Starving has got some votes this time. Oh! Starve. Okay, where did Starve go? Johnathan does not eat and continues to work. When the clock finally strikes 5 p.m. to release the unhappy office workers, he is hypoglycemic and dizzy from the drudgery. This state of mild delirium, while directly responsible for it, at least helps to numb the shock and pain of the impact of the bus he stumbles out in front of as he reels off the pavement in his haste to get home, which does not exist anymore. Would you like to tell your boss the truth, jump out of the window, or try again to throw her out of the window? 1, 2, 3, here we go. Defenestration is our only option. Come on, dice. You can do it. 18! It's a pass! I have dropped the dice on the floor. I don't care. It's going to stay down there. Horses are surprisingly heavy, but Johnathan is surprisingly into the business of throwing his much reviled boss out of the window. She's a toon. She'll be fine. She certainly makes a very funny noise when she hits the pavement. The police, however, think that this stunt is a little less funny and knock Johnathan out cold in the back of their van. Unfortunately, they do it rather too well, and in the post-mortem, his broken neck is blamed on the driver, taking a turn too sharply. And I am actually going to take a 1-minute break because things are going to change. So, just talk amongst yourselves for a little second, and then I'll get back to you. Yeah, I won't take too long. I just need to stretch because I've been talking for 45 minutes straight. Ooh. I'm not even gonna bother pausing or muting because I'll forget to unmute and that would be stupid. So you can have the ambience of my room being empty without me in it for 30 seconds. Enjoy. Coming back from the distance. I haven't got my headphones in. Not that I can hear anybody else talking. This is like atmospherics. The narrator.
Oh,
Okay. Woo-hoo! Right. Now I have to find where I need to start this next bit from. Blah, la, 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 la. Okay. Johnathan wakes up on the sofa. Johnathan has a headache. Johnathan has an odd feeling that he has done this before. Johnathan knows that this is called déjà vu, was it? But Johnathan thinks that déjà vu doesn't usually feel this vivid. Johnathan gets up from the sofa. Will Johnathan stay or leave? Johnathan hastily decides to leave and does not stay on the stairwell long enough to wonder why there is water travelling down some of the steps. Johnathan arrives outside. Will Johnathan head west, east, or south? That's supposed to be south. What a time to make a typo. Fuck. Ruining my drama with the fucking typos! I'm afraid your bagel rights have been outvoted very strongly. That's a large number of votes for going south. Typo in the group chat? Never forgive. Johnathan heads south. He has never taken this road before, and there is a reason why. The only thing it leads to is a long and largely unused dirt track, which leads to the outskirts of the city. In fact, as he follows it, the mist grows around him, and he can see something in the distance. It appears to be an old laboratory. As with most laboratories in the Toonkind Isles, there are occasionally muffled explosions, guffs of strange-smelling smoke, or wild flashing lights and maniacal laughter coming from the interior. This lab was more unusual, however, because on the whole, nobody ever went in. Probably on account of the fact that nobody ever came out, either. Does Johnathan go in or not? I'm glad that there's at least a small representation of, life preservation going the other direction. Johnathan goes into the lab.
Well, another scientific mind has come to join us at last, and on such an excitingly auspicious day. Come in, do let us take your coat. Wee.
The fluttering, cheerful voice of the purple, round-headed Muppet-born greets Johnathan enthusiastically as the beanpole of an assistant takes his coat and bobs up and down obligingly as he does. Doctors Frank and Stein are an odd couple, quite literally, but certainly a lot more friendly than the company Johnathan usually finds himself in. Johnathan takes a seat and is given something to drink in a conical flask. Johnathan is relieved to discover that it is coffee, and he is offered a bagel. What would you like to do? Talk, eat, or look? Understandable. Johnathan hastily devours the bagel. It is a lovely bagel. In fact, Johnathan rather wishes he'd had two, but with the coffee it is adequate, and he feels something wonderful. It is the heady rush of calories, far much more needed than conversation, or resolutions to endless pathways which usually end up in... Is he talking about stuff that's already happened? No, he can't be. He doesn't know about us. It's all right, keep quiet. He probably won't see us. After having eaten, would you like to look or talk? Ooh. Okay. Relatively close, that one, but I think look has won it. Johnathan looks around him. The lab is just about holding itself up. There are cracks in the wall held together with sellotape, and here and there a stick to prop up the ceiling. For all this, it is humming with activity, with many mysterious electronic gadgets, some of which Johnathan recognizes, beeping and whistling and spitting out paper. In the far back of the lab, there is a wide frosted glass, which looks like it contains some sort of octopus, with 4 very elongated limbs wiggling wildly as the owner's muffled laughs ring out. Dr. Stein flaps a hand dismissively.
Don't worry about him. Just recuperating from one of our latest experiments. A great success, as you can see. Meanwhile,
would you like to talk? Regardless of which person Johnathan tries to talk to, Dr. Stein, the round-headed Muppet-born, is happy to do the talking for all 3. He delightedly explains that he and Dr. Frank are working on a machine for travel through space and time, and joyfully expounds that they have successfully done it with 1- and 2-dimensional objects and characters, and have almost managed a 3-dimensional one.
Subject underwent some mild spaghettification, as you can see,
he explains, the sounds of mad laughter from the said spaghettified Muppet-born behind the frosted glass, declaring the subject to be perfectly happy regardless.
We were about to go out and put up posters for volunteers. We can't risk a full kind yet. Even our Muppet-born test was not entirely successful. But what we really need to see what is happening is a half-toon, which, if I am not very much mistaken, happens to be exactly what you are, sir.
The 2 of them are looking at Johnathan in a way that nobody has ever looked at Johnathan before. That is because they are looking at Johnathan with hope, with respect, and with expectation. What will Johnathan do? Will he say yes? Will he say no? I thought you might pick that. Johnathan says yes. After much celebration and clamour and a large cake baked by a Muppet-born with a questionable accent that appears out of nowhere, the experiment gets underway. Johnathan enters a small test chamber, where he is put into a blue spherical machine with a spinning light on the top. This is called the UNTARDIS, which Dr. Stein explains stands for Unlimited Neurotransfer Time and Reality Dimensional Intersection Sphere.
You see, the point of it is that it allows one to see and respect, even interact with the infinite possibilities of the multiverse. Of course, we are only observing at this point. No touchy, better safe than sorry. Now, all you have to do is hit that button there when you're ready. And when you want to come back, you hit it again. It's just that simple. It's important that you don't touch anything else, of course. Not yet. It should be perfectly safe, even if you do, of course, almost certainly, well, probably. But in the interest of scientific clarity, we must only observe for now. And with our previous very nearly successful run, I am absolutely positive that this will go absolutely.
What does Johnathan do? Does he listen, or does he press the button? You are being unusually sensible. How delightful. Johnathan somehow sits and listens for another 10 minutes. Dr. Stein shows no signs of stopping. Does Johnathan press the button? I'm sorry, but one of you voted, so all of you have voted. Johnathan presses the button, and the world around him appears and disappears all at once. It's like being born. It's like dying. It's like watching the end and the beginning at the same time, but oh, how many ends and beginnings and middles there are. Johnathan sees a kaleidoscope of different versions of reality, of himself, of this day, versions where he went to work, Versions where he dies, so many versions where he dies, gets knocked unconscious or stays in bed and drowns or is flung into the path of a moving fire truck by an orange thing, and this is boring. This is boring. And hey, what's that thing over there?
Are you all right in there, Mr. Starr? Mr. Starr?
The voice of Dr. Stein floats towards Johnathan from a seemingly infinite distance, annoying and intruding on this grand exploration as Johnathan himself, somehow steers his mind, heading towards that fragment of light that had so intrigued him, and suddenly there he is, looking at another him. But this time, another world. A world of black paper backgrounds, of towering skylines, of dark Art Deco curves and edges, jutting and cutting and riddled with smoke and crime, so new and yet so familiar, so much the same and yet so very, very different from his version here. And it's so much brighter and wilder, and is he fighting someone? Who is that guy? That guy, the one in the mask and the cape. Why can't Johnathan stop looking at this man, this person who he's never met and yet he misses? Is that who? Is that the who? Is that the what? Is that the filling of the hole that I'd always had in my chest? The void? Johnathan knows he shouldn't, but his hand reaches out, grasping, gripping, reaches out and reaches into, and that is when the TARDIS explodes. And this is where it happens. Johnathan, me, breaks through the fourth wall. And not just any fourth wall, no, not just a fourth wall, but every single one. And the shattered window panes of those infinite selves splinter and stick into him on the way down. And Johnathan keeps breaking. Johnathan breaks. Shattering, smashing through every rendition of himself in every single universe, eternally and only for a moment, like a single tree split by a single axe into the pages of 1,000 million trillion novels, each single book a life, and each page a tiny fleeting finite sliver of himself, paper thin, but each as much a part of them as the rest, and Johnathan sees it all, feels it all. He is split upon the blade of the time knife. Yes, we've all seen it. And Johnathan sees everything from every point of view he has ever had. And he sees how funny it is. Johnathan sees, finally, how clever he is, how clever everyone else is too, how stupid everyone else is too, and how hateful, and how loving, and how brilliant, and how insignificant, and all the iterations of him and them and the worlds there have ever been, and it is wonderful and painful, and he sees everything, and for a moment he is everything. And Johnathan, for the very first time in an awfully long time, starts laughing. The joke, you see, is that everyone else is everything too, but very few people ever experience it all at once. As I said before, everything is good for you in very small doses. And as with light and sound and digitalis, Johnathan Starr's mind, body and soul respond to this overdose of experience in the only way a mortal can. He dies. Shattering piecemeal through every possibility that lies inside and outside of himself for what feels like eternity, and yet within that single second of hitting the button, the person who had once been J. Starr, yes, I know, you've already seen it, resolves back, singular, alive, breathing, while surrounded by the remnants of the burning, shattered laboratory. The man, myself, stands and calmly walks out of the wreckage of the laboratory, brushing the rubble from my suit as I leave, a single solid being, and yet he is never ever quite one thing or person ever again. By the way, did you spot my little joke at the beginning? His father died 2 months ago. Johnathan had been the only person to attend his father's funeral. Isn't that good? The only person to attend the funeral. You see? Don't you get it? Johnathan was the only person who attended because Johnathan was the one who buried him. Out in the woods, to the north. Don't ask me where. I didn't bother to mark the spot. Oh, and by the way, thank you all so much for playing my little game. And I really do mean that, because you see, you all made me who I am today. And I'm a little bit of everything, all of the time. Thanks for listening. Y'all wanted a backstory today, right?